Okay, great. Here we are. So we are going to be taking what I'm calling an unbiased look at testing and remediation tools today. My caveat for you, obviously, this is not everything that's on the market, right? I tried to look at a number of the tools that I am familiar with, as well as digging up a few that maybe are new or emerging, so that we can kind of try to do an apples to apples comparison. And then when we move into our discussion portion today, I'm hoping that some of you who have used these tools or have experience with them can kind of share what that has been like for you. So we'll be looking at things like features, pricing, user experiences, and then we'll have our discussion to find out kind of what's working for you, what isn't working for you, what you love or hate about the tools that you're using. So what did I look at when I looked at these different tools? Just a couple of points of comparison. First, what type of content do these tools work on? Is it PDFs or is it web content? Because those are kind of the primary two different ways that these tools might work, and some of them do both. I looked at how the tool is structured, right? Is this a standalone software that you download or is this a web-based tool? I looked at the functionality the tools offer. Is it just for testing or does it also offer remediation capabilities? Because those are two big differences. And then finally, is this a manual tool or does it have automated features? So those are kind of the points of comparison that we're going to be looking at as we review these different tools. I apologize. I'm still letting a few more folks in from the waiting room. So if you see me clicking around, that's where I'm going. We're going to start by looking at the tools that we use to evaluate the accessibility of our web content, our websites, and our web pages. So the first tool I looked at was the Access widget by Accessibee. So this is, as the name would imply, this is a widget you install on your website. So this is obviously a web-based tool, and it looks just at your web content. This does offer both some testing and remediation functionalities. So what this widget is designed to do is it actively scans all the pages on your website, and it is supposed to offer some automated remediation fixes just in the background running along as you go without you having to touch it. I will say that it does seem to have some limitations as far as its capabilities. So there's some aspects of accessibility, right, that it probably can't touch. It can't change like the reading level of your content or things like that. But it is supposed to kind of just chug along on the back end to address issues that might arise and remediate them. So it is both, something that is scanning for and then addressing issues that it identifies. It seems like it's designed primarily for like the e-commerce sector because the pricing model is based on page views, which is like sort of an unusual model in our sector. So the costs range from what I saw was starting around $490 a year up to close to $4,000 a year. And again, that range would be based on page views. So this is a little bit of an oddball. It's a little bit limited in its capability, but I do see this tool out there a lot. It's one of the only like widgets or overlays that I looked at. The next tool I looked at was Acquia. This used to be Moncito. You may know it by that name. Moncito and now Acquia has done a lot of work in the public sector, right? They have worked with a lot of school districts and local governments. So that's more of like the native language that they speak. So this tool is a browser-based dashboard that you would log into to see the accessibility issues on your website. It does also identify issues in the PDFs on that domain as well as the web pages themselves. And it does offer some integration tools. So it can integrate with platforms like Parent Square, Finalsite, a number of other CMSs. So the idea being you can be logged into Acquia, you see that there's an error. If you have that integration set up, you should be able to click right through to actually fix the issue, right? So while it is only a testing tool, it does offer that integration piece so that you can just click right through to fix the issue. I would consider this a manual tool. You can schedule scans or you can run a scan on demand, but it's not like constantly scanning in the background. Do you know what I mean? It's just doing those scans when you tell it to. One of the cool things that I noticed about it is you can sort of create your own content rules. So in addition to scanning for like standard accessibility issues, you can tell it to look for other things, which I think can be really helpful in our environments. An example that I heard was like, let's say you have a staff member whose name has changed because of marriage. You could create a content rule that's like, find me all the instances of this. So I thought that was kind of neat. However, I was not able to get any pricing information for you guys. that wasn't available. So hopefully if anyone on this call is using this tool, you might be able to share a little bit with us during the discussion about what that pricing structure looks like for your organization. I looked at two free tools that basically work the same way, so I lumped them together into one slide. One of them is the Wave tool. This is a browser add-on that the World Wide Web Consortium has developed. The other tool is called Andy. I don't know if that stands for something. I apologize. And this tool was actually developed by the Social Security Administration, which is kind of crazy. They both do the exact same thing. So this is like a browser add-on that you add to your web browser, and you can toggle it on, and that browser add-on will scan the page that you have open in your browser. So this is kind of just like a quick glance at a web page. It's obviously only looking at one page at a time. It's not scanning the whole site, right? So this can be a useful tool to have in your back pocket to just take a quick glance at a page, especially if it's one that you aren't able to like log into and see the back end of. Right? You can do little spot checks with these tools. They're completely free. They're compatible with a number of different browsers and obviously operating systems. But again, you're not really sort of looking under the hood, and it is only a testing tool. There's no remediation capabilities here. So it's a little bit limited in what it's able to do, in what they are able to do, I should say. Then there's level access. So this is like an enterprise scale web-based platform. One of the interesting things about level access is that it has the capacity to evaluate a number of different content types, not just web pages, not just PDFs, but other documents that you put into that content environment. Okay. And they don't have to be on your website in order for this tool to work. So that's a little different than the way some of these other tools work. What I mean by that is you can upload content into your level access dashboard and it will evaluate those for accessibility. So what this enables you to do is obviously A, you can evaluate something before it goes on your website or even if it's never going to go onto your website. And B, like you can spot check things right before they go live. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That's distinct from a lot of these other tools that are really only looking at what is on your current live site. And again, it supports, I didn't get a full list of the content types it supports, but it is not limited to just PDFs. It can look at other document types as well. And so it will scan sort of like everything that you tell it is within your content environment. The company does offer additional services that you can access from within that platform. So things like auditing or manual testing. From right there within your platform, you could be like, hey, like I need manual user testing of this PDF, and you would click some buttons and it would make that happen. Obviously, there's an additional cost associated with those additional services, but you can sort of have everything all in one hub. And I believe that this platform has some, like task management tools associated with it as well. If there were multiple people in this content environment, you could sort of see who's doing what when. I don't have pricing information on this one either. That was a real challenge for me. So I have some sort of ballpark figures that I'll show you on a comparison slide in a moment. I also looked at the RAMP tool. This is in all caps, but I don't know if it's an acronym. This is a browser-based tool that Accessible Web has developed. So this does a little bit more of sort of like ongoing scanning in the background, not just scheduled or manually. This tool also allows you to manage multiple URLs in the same dashboard. So if you had, for example, like let's say your school sites, like each were actually their own individual domain, you could throw them all into one dashboard and you would see them all when you were logged in. They also have a browser extension that you can install that sort of connects that dashboard to your live site. So that's another tool you can use that sort of, lets you see it in real time. And their pricing model is like a monthly subscription that's tiered based on several different factors. So it's based on sort of like the number of scans you want to run, the number of sites you're scanning, things like that. There is a free trial available for the RAMP tool. I actually logged in and did the free trial just so I could see what it was like. So if this is a tool you're curious about, I would encourage you to check out the free trial because you do actually really get to see its full capabilities and functionality through that free trial, and you can kind of see how it operates. So it's nice to be able to sort of see that real-time view of it. And then I looked at Site Improve. This is also a web-based platform. It also can scan your PDFs as well as your web content. Site Improve, though, does like a huge amount more than just accessibility. So it's also looking at things like SEO. It's looking at things like your sales funnel, which you probably don't have one if your website is like mine. It's looking at things like broken links, misspellings. So accessibility is sort of just one part of the service that you're paying for, and the price reflects that, is what I will say. This similarly is like scheduled or on-demand scans. So it's not constantly scanning in the background. It is only scanning when you tell it to. And those scans can sometimes be time consuming. If you have a larger site with a lot of pages, then getting that scan result back, sometimes you're waiting quite a while. Like a lot of these other tools, it will show you the errors on the live page where they are, but there isn't like that bridge. You do have to sort of then go into your own CMS and like follow that path to get to where the error is. Site Improve also, like you can generate so many different kinds of reports from Site Improve and send them to different users. But all these bells and whistles are reflected in the price. The price is on the higher side. And there are no remediation tools within Site Improve. It is testing only. So here's the sort of side-by-side comparison of all those tools I just went over. As we can see, very few of these tools actually include remediation tools, right? Mostly these are testing tools, and mostly you're doing it manually. A few of them do look at your PDFs as well as your web content, but not all. And you'll get this slide from me as well as the one for the PDF testing tools that we're about to look at next. So when it comes to testing and remediation of PDFs for accessibility, the first thing I looked at was our good old friend Adobe Acrobat Pro. So this is standalone software, right, that you would download onto your machine. You can evaluate and remediate your PDF for accessibility using this tool. However, I will say that generally this is considered a tool with a steep learning curve and a high frustration rate. Because it has been around for so long, it's an Adobe product, they're pretty ubiquitous. There is a lot of learning material available to support your use of this tool, but it can be an uphill learning curve to get there. Also, notoriously, Acrobat Pro does not catch all the errors. Documents can pass Acrobat with flying colors, and there will still be accessibility issues in there. So something to know. Like your other Adobe products, right? This is an annual subscription billed monthly. It starts at $19.99 a month, which is a pretty low point of entry. And obviously it can be bundled with other Adobe products at a discount. So the price point is really on the low side, but it might be a little challenging to use. Like I've heard multiple people say, and I have said this, that using Adobe to remediate PDFs for accessibility has made them cry, and I have cried trying to use it. So, but you may be made of stronger stuff than me. So then we have Equidocs. This is a cloud-based service that offers largely automated remediation of documents. So it's a combination of automated and manual tools. The idea is that it will be able to get your document a large percentage of the way there using automated tools. And then you can come in and manually review those fixes that were made or adjust it accordingly. This tool is designed to be extremely beginner friendly and very fast to use. Some of the features that it includes are you can apply like the tags from one remediated document to an updated version, which is amazing. So let's say, for example, you had your board minutes from last month and they were like all clean and remediated and ready to go. You could sort of use that as like a template and apply that remediated structure to the new version of that same document. Equidocs also offers remediation as a service. So you can say, like I'm tapping out on this document. I need someone else to come in and fix it for me. That's priced separately. I was not able to get pricing info for Equidocs' services, but I would say it's on like the mid to higher end. And then we have Common Look from Alliant, which I think is very similar in its approach and its functionality to Equidocs. So again, we've got a browser-based tool. Again, we're combining automated fixes with manual controls. Again, we also see that they offer remediation as a service in addition to the tools that they provide to you through their software. A few of the differences are, I would say, what I've heard from users is that Common Look maybe has like a little bit steeper of a learning curve than Equidox. It's a really robust feature set, right? So whenever we have like a really robust tool, sometimes it just takes us a bit longer to get familiar with all those different tools. Whereas I think Equidox is like has really, really, really put emphasis on being extremely user friendly. Um, Common Look, I think also. I also heard from some users that if you have really, really complex documents, those automated tools in Equidox like might not always be up to the challenge. Common Look maybe is like a little bit more robust at handling a more complex document. The pricing structure here is an annual subscription that's sort of based on like the number of seats. So, it's the sort of thing where like if you have a larger team, that per user cost is less, which we often see with software as a service, right? Then we have the Pack Checker. This is a free piece of standalone software that you would download onto your computer. It's a very widely used tool. It's a very robust accessibility checker. Like this tool will catch everything. You can take something you thought was so clean and you put it into the pack checker and it will find something, I swear to God. It's very no frills tool. It gives you very bare bones information about the issues that might be present in that document. Does not really explain in great detail like what that means or how to fix them. And it is a testing tool only. It does not have remediation functionality. And I understand this may be changing, but as of right now, I believe it only works in a Windows environment. I do not believe that the Pack Checker runs on a Mac. I could be wrong about that. Someone can correct me if you know otherwise, but that's my understanding right now. Again, this is like standalone software that you would download and run on your machine, but it is free. And then I also looked at Prep. This is another browser-based tool for testing and remediation. Again, this is a tool that is largely automated and designed to be quick, where you can upload a PDF and the automated tools will remediate it to, I was told, within 90% of compliance. And then there would be that manual last step where you would go through, review, adjust as needed, and ensure that everything appeared to be correct. Prep offers a lot of add-on services beyond their base pricing. Some of the ones that interested me were AI-generated alt text that is contextual, which I thought was really interesting. So it looks at the image within the context of the document, and that includes things like complex charts, graphs, and diagrams. They also offer as an add-on accessible templates, similar to what I mentioned a moment earlier. So you can create a template for a type of document that you are going to be generating over and over again and use that accessible template repeatedly. Like a lot of these other tools, they also offer remediation as a service. They offer some project management tools within the platform, and the pricing structure is per seat with tiers by volume for number of documents, right? If that makes sense. And then finally, I think this is my last one. These seem to be in no particular order, so I apologize for that. We have Access PDF. This is another standalone software that you would download and run on your computer. This is a pro-level tool that assumes a high level of technical knowledge. It is not designed to be beginner friendly. It is designed for like the person who does PDF remediation and knows what they're doing. It will only work on a PDF that already has a basic tag structure. So like that scanned, image of a document that you got, like it's not going to work on something that is like that far gone. Like you sort of have to get something up to like a basic level of like at least having a tag structure before you can even introduce it into the Axes tool. Just like a lot of these other ones, they offer remediation as a service as well. One of the features that I thought was interesting was while this is a manual tool, it does have bulk actions. So you're manually applying these fixes to the documents, but you can sort of do a bunch of it with one click. I'm trying to think of a good example, like, let's say tagging all the links in the document correctly. You can do that as a bulk action. So while it is a manual process, they do have some tools built into that manual process to speed things up a little bit. This is, I think, a really popular tool, again, like I said, among people who like do this for a living. Like this is what they do. I think that Axes is probably the most likely tool that they would use at that like high level proficiency professional level. Oh, and there was one more, accessibility on demand. I found this one kind of in the 11th hour. This is another browser-based tool. It has no limit on the number of users or seats. So I think it's designed to be sort of like an organizational wide tool that everyone can like jump into and use. Again, here we see that it's a largely automated tool that's supposed to get you about 90% of the way there, and then you would do that manual review. That review panel like gives, you as the user like some control over the tagging structure, but it does assume some prior knowledge of like what is a tagging structure and what should it look like. So I'd say this is like a mid level of knowledge or expertise that it assumes. They have a tiered pricing structure, and I thought this was interesting. Like the tiered pricing ranges from like very simple, sort of like one-click automated remediation up to human-powered complex remediation. So the highest tier level is where there would actually be a human doing a manual review of your document and manually testing it for accessibility. It's priced on like a credits basis. So like a really simple job, would cost you like 1 credit. And, that complex document that you want like a human to do a manual review of might be like $12 a page as opposed to 30 cents a page for the simple one. So I thought that was an interesting pricing structure. I thought it was interesting that they do offer like human testing as part of their tiered structure because we know that sometimes that's really important with more complex documents. So here is kind of that side-by-side comparison. What we can see is that most of these tools are fundamentally remediation tools, and all of them do allow the user to have some manual control over what's happening. Probably about half of these offer some automated capability, and it's a mix of browser-based or standalone app. Again, this is not everything in the market by any means. But I did try to review some of the tools that I think are common in our field or in the marketplace, just to give you an idea of how those features and functionalities might compare. Before we break for our discussion, I wanted to talk about the office hours that I'm going to be doing in January. So registration for that cohort that Stephen told us about at the top of the hour will open later this week. I will send that link out to folks. But I'm also going to be hosting 3 separate office hours in January. This is time for whatever you want it to be. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be on Zoom. I'm going to be hanging out. And you can come and talk about a problem you're having, bring a question that you may have, or if you want to ask me a question about the cohort, we can talk about that too. The QR code on your screen will just take you to the landing page for the PLC on our Nickel Strategies website, where there are individual registration links for each of these office hours. So I encourage you to sign up if you want to kind of keep this conversation going. Just pop in to any of these office hours. If you register, you'll get the link. And like you can come and go as you want. You don't have to stay for the full hour. You can dip in, anytime during that hour to ask a question. Talk about something you have going on, and we'll just use that time however folks want to. So I hope to see you in January. I try to spread this out over the weeks and offer a couple different times so that hopefully you can find one that works with your schedule somewhere in the mix. And if none of these times work for you, and if you really want some time in January, like just reach out and we'll find a time to connect.